The Ghost of Blackwood High. Part 1. The Unspoken Vow. Ethan and Seraphina were the quintessential high school sweethearts of Blackwood High. Not the loud, popular kind, but the deeply entwined soulmate kind. They met in AP English, bonding over Gothic literature and shared secrets whispered in the dusty corners of the school library. Seraphina, with her intense dark eyes and love for old horror films, was ethereal. Ethan, her steadfast anchor. Their bond was an open secret, an unspoken vow of forever. The summer before their senior year, everything changed with the arrival of the wealthy, dazzling new girl Lilith Vance. Lilith was a whirlwind of blonde hair, easy laughter, and casual designer clothes, everything Seraphina was not. She brought with her an aura of easy popularity and a promise of a future that felt more shiny and less complicated than the intense, brooding world Seraphina inhabited. Ethan was drawn in, first by curiosity, then by an undeniable magnetic pull. He started missing their late-night calls. He stopped showing up at their hidden spot by the old abandoned oak tree behind the football field. Seraphina watched, her heart a raw wound, as her forever slipped away. Part 2. The Ultimate Betrayal. The betrayal became complete when Ethan, now Lilith's official boyfriend and surrounded by a new meaner circle of friends, chief among them the callous jocks, twins Marcus and Silas, started treating Seraphina with cold dismissal. She tried to talk to him one last time, cornering him after a Friday night game. "Ethan, please, what about our plans? The college applications, the apartment in the city? What about us?" she pleaded, tears tracing paths through her eyeliner. Ethan looked at her, and for a terrifying second, she saw not the boy she loved, but a stranger. "Seraphina, your drama. Lilith, she gets it. She's moving forward, and I'm moving with her. You're holding me back." Seraphina was broken, but her pain quickly curdled into rage. She began sending him cryptic, furious messages, reminding him of his promises, threatening to expose some of his minor, shameful high school secrets to Lilith. Ethan panicked. He couldn't risk his new life. Late one October night, under the shadow of the old oak tree, Ethan met with Marcus and Silas. They hatched a wicked plan. They would lure Seraphina to the isolated woods near the old, closed-down Blackwood Reservoir, a notorious local spot for teen urban legends. They would scare her, make her drop the threats, and force her to leave town. But the plan went horribly wrong, or perhaps exactly right. When Seraphina resisted, Marcus and Silas, fueled by a terrifying mix of recklessness and malice, went too far. Ethan stood by, frozen in a silent, gutless horror, as his two friends took her life and dumped her body into the deep, dark water of the abandoned reservoir. The murder was clumsy, driven by panic and darkness, and they swore a blood oath to keep the secret. They told the police she ran away. Seraphina vanished, and the legend of the girl who disappeared right before graduation was born at Blackwood High. The sweet life and the chill. Ethan moved on. He had Lilith, a clean slate, a scholarship, and the comforting knowledge that the deep, unforgiving water had swallowed his secret whole. He was haunted, yes, but he buried the guilt under layers of ambition and Lilith's unwavering affection. A year passed. Ethan and Lilith were at a prestigious university in a different state. Then the strange things began. It started subtly. The faint, persistent smell of chlorine and wet dirt in their dorm room, even on dry days. A shadow in the periphery of their photos, looking strangely like a girl with long dark hair. The music in their apartment would sometimes spontaneously change to Seraphina's favorite forgotten songs, old mournful ballads. Ethan dismissed it as stress. Lilith, however, began to feel a deep, unnerving cold whenever Ethan was near. The situation escalated when Ethan's former accomplices, the twins Marcus and Silas, started experiencing true horror. First, Silas was found in the middle of a deserted road, staring wildly. He claimed a dark, soaking wet figure emerged from his rearview mirror and whispered his name. He checked himself into a psychiatric facility, terrified of water, mirrors, and the dark. Then Marcus, a skilled swimmer, drowned mysteriously in his university's pool. Surveillance footage showed him fighting an invisible force dragging him down, a look of profound terror etched onto his face as the pool water seemed to darken around him. The guilt, combined with the supernatural horror, finally broke Ethan. He started drinking heavily, muttering Seraphina's name. Lilith, sensing the darkness, began her own investigation into his past, digging into the runaway story. Part 4. The Revenge of the Reservoir. Lilith finally found an old journal Seraphina had kept. It was mailed to her anonymously. In its final frantic pages, Seraphina detailed her conversation with Ethan, her rage, and the ominous meeting she had planned by the reservoir, hinting at the damning information she held. Lilith finally understood. Ethan hadn't just moved on, he was complicit in murder. When she confronted him, the scene was violent. Lilith, heartbroken and enraged, screamed at him, "She didn't just run away, you let them kill her. And now, she's back for you." As she said those words, the room temperature plummeted. A wet, chilling air filled the apartment. The lights flickered and died. In the sudden, oppressive darkness, a figure materialized in the center of the room. It was Seraphina. She was soaking wet, her dark hair plastered to her face, her clothing heavy and clinging like graveyard soil. Her eyes were not the beautiful, intense eyes Ethan remembered. They were pools of black, bottomless water reflecting a hate that burned hotter than any fire. She was the ghost of Blackwood High, and her unfinished business was him. Lilith, terrified but clear-headed, fled the apartment, slamming the door and calling the police from the hallway. Ethan was trapped. He tried to beg, to apologize, but his words choked on the sulphurous, wet air that now surrounded him. "You took my forever." Seraphina's voice was a ragged whisper, a sound of water gurgling over stone. "And then you took my life." The revenge was swift and merciless. Seraphina did not touch him. Instead, the water in the apartment's pipes, in the air and even in the glass on the counter, began to coalesce. It wrapped around Ethan like a shroud, a heavy, suffocating weight of reservoir water and dirt. He was dragged, screaming, across the floor as the water rose around him, until finally, with a choked, bubbling gasp, he was silenced. When the police broke the door down minutes later, the lights were back on. The apartment was bone dry. All they found was Ethan's body, lying on the rug, his lungs filled with an impossible amount of dark, muddy water. Seraphina's revenge was complete. Ethan and his friends were gone, claimed by the ghost of the girl they betrayed for a shinier life. And the ghost of Blackwood High, the girl whose love turned to undying vengeance, returned to her cold, watery grave, waiting patiently for the next soul who dared to break a vow of forever.